Are you here to hear some serious horror stories about what can go wrong when buying a new build? Because you're in the right place.
We've got tons of those stories, but don't worry, we're actually here to give you a guide on how to go through the new build process, make sure you're protected, and get the best experience possible.
Absolutely. We are Jake and Megan Friedel, full-time real estate agents, part-time tour guides to all things Denver living. And today we want to talk to you about Denver new builds.
And that list includes how to negotiate the best deal with a builder, how to understand the lending finance, the lender offers and financing that they're offering, tax structure, when you should make sure and do your inspections, and so much more. So stick around with us. We got plenty of good stuff for you today. So the best things about a new build are, obviously, brand new home. No one's lived in it before. You don't have to deal with any of the nonsense they left you. You get a brand new roof, you get a brand new HVAC system, all kinds of good things. And also, you can time things out so that you're under contract on the home way in advance. You can list your home and then move yourself into the new build when it's ready. But what we need to do is talk about the risks here, because you see this brand new house and you think there are no risks. It's brand new. There are tons of risks. It's just that they're different. So today we're not talking about the granite choices and the right paint choices. We're talking about how to mitigate those risks, how to avoid things, and how to set yourself up for the best situation.
Money. It's probably already on the forefront of your mind if you're buying a home, regardless of what type it is. But here's the thing about new builds. They're specifically marketed and designed to feel like you are getting the most slammin' deal around. They offer closing cost incentives, rate buydowns, but here's the thing. No money is free. There's no free lunch. These are always going to come with a cost. The first of this is they're usually tied to using their lender. It's usually a lender incentive. And their lender might not always be offering the best rates, the best closing costs, or definitely the best customer service, in my opinion. So what's the real cost of saving 1% on your loan if you have to have a higher interest rate to begin with? And also a lot of these costs are advertised of what you could save based on the life of your loan. But let's be honest, most people are in and out of their house in significantly less time than it really takes for any of that to break even and make a huge financial gain. Not to mention, regardless of whatever home you're buying, if the rate does come down over the life of your loan, you always have the option to refinance. And with the lenders that we recommend, they'll typically do that refinance if you've recently bought with them at no charge. So it's not much of a risk. Did I scare you yet? Good. No, I'm just kidding. There's a way to do this right. Don't be freaked out. All I'm saying is that when you are taking that 15 grand of incentives, you just want to be mindful of the long term. Remember when it's time to sell that was 15 grand of maybe theoretically equity that you took a little bit in advance. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, a lot of times it's a hack to homeownership. And sometimes I really encourage it with people. But you just have to be knowledgeable about what you're doing at the time you're doing it to make sure it makes sense for you in the end. And as far as that 2-1 buydown goes, do you think I'm balking at a 3.5% interest rate? I'm not. It's great. In fact, sometimes it's the tool that I recommend for people to get into housing. It's a great hack, but you just have to know that's going to go up. And when it goes up, it might go back to a slightly elevated lender rate. You can always refinance though. Given the market conditions, you have to know that maybe that rate doesn't actually ever go lower than where you originally financed at. But most likely over time, it may. And you can refinance with another lender. And talk about a bait and switch, because I've got a great story about builder incentives gone wrong. I had a buyer who was a cash buyer, and a lot of these incentives are tied to a lender. So we discussed, well, we don't need a loan. Can we still have all of these incentives you're offering? No problem, they said. It was a dollar amount. And at the end of the time, we had plans for where these incentives were going to go. All of a sudden, it became, well, you guys don't need the full amount because you don't have that many closing costs. So we'll cover all the closing costs that you have, but everything else you were going to do with these incentives, you can't do because they're not tied to a loan. But she had intentions to use those concessions for other things. and they were taken away from her. Now, when we initially went through the contract, I pointed out the intense strength that these builder contracts have. They have the upper hand in a lot of ways. And I explained to her that, hey, they are saying we're going to be able to use these concessions, but I bet it's not going to go maybe as perfectly as we have planned. And sure enough, they took a couple thousand off the table that they had originally said my buyer was going to get. We fought tooth and nail and we got a little of it back, but ultimately we left the situation feeling a little peeved. Now this builder, who shall not be named, that's for a time over martinis sometime. They said that they have the unilateral contractual right to terminate the contract at any time. And if we were to pursue much further on these concessions, they would terminate the contract us right then and right there. Do they have the right to do this? Oh yeah, it's in their contract that they write for them.
Megan, whoa, easy there, okay? Don't get us blackballed from the builder like she almost did. But the important thing to mention here is that my sister and I, we are fiercely fighting for our clients every step of the way through this. So if you think you can step through a new build without a real estate agent, I mean, more power to you. But it is always nice to have someone who has experience and attorneys in our pockets ready fighting for you and negotiating for you every step of the way. And if you're hoping you're going to get a better deal and a lower price because you didn't use a real estate agent, think again. These folks just don't do that. It's just extra profit for them, for you to have more exposure and less negotiating power. Okay, and now a little bit more on the loan. So when you apply for a loan and you get accepted for that, you get something called a rate lock, where the lender locks in your rate for a specific period of time. So let's say you rock in at 5.99% and you get 6 weeks to close on that. The problem with a new build is you might not be 6 weeks away from closing. So if you're locked in at a rate, the rate could go up between the lock and the time of closing. And if the rate goes down, they may not give you the opportunity to float your rate down. Most mortgage brokers who are not tied to a builder will give you at least one free rate flow down, which means if rates improve while you're waiting to close on your home, they'll give you that better rate. Again, we're not saying don't buy a new build. We just want you to walk into the situation with open eyes and explore all of your options before you sign on that dotted line. Next, let's talk about taxes. So new builds, because you're buying into a brand new community that doesn't have sewer lines and power lines and all the infrastructure a neighborhood needs, you're paying for those things, both with the purchase price and with your taxes. Most of these new builds have a metropolitan district tax, which is an additional line on them on your property tax at the end of the year. And whereas in the major places of Denver where homes are already built, your taxes are going to be somewhere on the 0.5 to 0.55 amount of taxes. So $1 million home taxes are probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000 a year. But if you buy into these new builds, the taxes are going to be double. So a lot of times you're seeing 1.2% taxes. So $1 million home, you might be paying $12,000 a year in taxes. And if they don't explain that to you, you could be running yourself into a pretty bad financial situation. Like, oh, you're saving all this money with this rate buy down we're giving you, but you're paying it back to the government in the form of taxes. So you need to be wide-eyed to this fact and make sure you're asking lots of questions, and we're happy to do that for you.
Take these two different super comparable homes that you could be looking at in the same day even. One is up in Commerce City and it's a new build with a sale price of $655,000, but the taxes on it are $10,118 a year. If you compare that to another home that's just a little bit further south that closed right around the same price, just under $650K, its taxes are only $2,620 a year. So we're talking a $625 a month difference. You've got to be aware of that.
You would think this would be open disclosure, and it's not always. So when they initially assess the taxes of the home, they assess it based on the value of the land. And then 1 year into your ownership, they reassess the taxes based on the value of the home and the land. So what looks like a really reasonable tax payment for the first year turns into a staggeringly high payment the next year. Now, we had a situation, we walked our clients through this and told them like, hey, be ready. But here's the situation is there's so much happening in the state of a real estate transaction, and there's so many things to remember that the lender never reviewed this and reminded them, this is your monthly payment for now, it's going to go up when you get taxes. Unfortunately, these folks were surprised by a $300 per month hike after owning the home for a year.
Appreciation is probably your number one or number two reason that you're buying a home. And not to say that a new build cannot appreciate beautifully, but it's up against a few struggles in the short term. First of all, say you want to sell your home about 5 years after you buy it, but the builder that you bought from, or maybe a competing builder, is developing the neighborhood directly next door to you still. That's what happens. These builds take multiple phases and they take many years. Well, now you are up against a neighboring competition that is a brand new build, and it has those same lender incentives or closing cost incentives that you were caught with when you first bought your home. Tell me why a buyer is going to pick your 5-year-older home over the new build directly next door with all these beautiful lender incentives. Well, if you bought it for low enough 5 years ago, then you're great. You can compete with them by being a lower price. But a lot of times that is just not enough to win out, and you just have some appreciation struggles. These incentives offered on these new builds are not just flashy incentives. They're sometimes the key to homeownership. So you might really need that to get into a home. But here's the secret. Incentives and buyers, rate buydowns, closing cost coverage by the seller, none of this is new. The builder didn't invent this. We've been doing this for years. A lot of time that's a technique that I use with my sellers to get a leg up on the competition. We'll right up front offer to buy down the rate. It's just instead of, we just kind of bake it into the purchase price. So it's something you don't have to go to a new build for, even though they make you feel like it's they're the only people who've ever offered it. One thing we work extensively with our clients with is working on having a home that's fairly recession-proof. And new builds tend to struggle with this. That's because when a recession hits or when the market just takes a little bit of a downturn, just more likely what you'll see, these homes tend to get hit the fastest, the hardest, and for the longest. So when you're a little bit closer into the central suburbs, those tend to decrease in value a little slower and regain a little quicker. You just have to be a little bit more mindful about playing the long game in times where something like this could happen, which may not ever even happen, and it might not be a problem.
Okay, so you're walking into that new build office, you see that friendly sales representative, and you're asking them about the neighborhood. And they tell you, you're lucky, you're getting in early because all the prices are going to go up after this one. So if you buy one of these houses, you're going to get a ton of equity automatically just with the building of the neighborhood. Okay, this is true in the short term. That is true because all the prices will go up as the development continues, unless the market turns. And that could happen in the middle of your purchase, or it could happen after the purchase. Because the thing is, when people are buying homes, they're not buying them and they're not looking at one neighborhood in a vacuum. They're looking at neighborhood values all around. And so if the market turns, all that appreciation you got could disappear overnight.
Jake, I feel like this could be a good spot for something nice about new builds.
Yeah, we're being pretty harsh. We're kind of working the body pretty good here. So here's something cool about new builds is new builds in the last couple of years has returned Colorado to a place, or the Denver metro area, to a place where you can find a pretty great home for $500,000. And that opportunity just doesn't exist within the confines of the city so much. So sometimes they provide a really awesome, much needed service, and you can get a brand new home just a little further out of the city. So I got to give new builds that. We're definitely grateful for more inventory.
All right, that's enough lovey-dovey. Bash him again, Jake.
Let's get back to it. Okay, so real life scenario. We had a pretty rough situation, a kind of a heartbreaking situation with some of my clients. They had to sell a home and move into a new build. Long story, we had in-depth conversations about the potential risks, and it was still felt like the right move for them at the time. So they moved into their new builds toward the end of the development and also towards the end of 2024, when prices were kind of about to start dropping in 2025. They took all of the lender incentives that we talked about before, that you're kind of taking your equity in advance, and increased the purchase price as much as they could. And so then less than a year later, another bad thing happened. We had this cascade of scenarios, and they had to sell the home. Less than a year later, we sold it for $80,000 less than they purchased for. And that was absolutely heartbreaking. Considerations that could have made this situation less bad, okay? Because we're here to tell you about how to do a new build right. Consideration number one, not taking all of the builder incentives to their maximum and essentially taking all of that equity up front. Number two, like I said, these folks had some extenuating circumstances, but planning to own your home for the long term so you're not counting on short-term sharp appreciation, because it just doesn't always happen that way. And then number three is actually nothing we could have done here, but a bone I kind of have to pick with the whole process of new builds that you should be aware of. And that is the appraisal process. An appraisal is done to protect you, the buyer, and the lender who's loaning the money on this home. And so they do this, an appraiser goes in and verifies the value that you're going to pay for the house and says, yes, we agree with the value that you're going to pay here. And the problem sometimes with new builds is that appraisers just kind of get on this roll, and it's a new build and it's supposedly supported by all the sales around it. And that's just not always happening. So we have to be really careful about just trusting the appraisal on a new build specifically.
When you're buying a new development, it's just that, a new development. Everything around it is still being built out. And so there's usually like some pretty good guesses about what is going to be built around you. Say you know that there's going to be a Costco there, everybody's talking about it, but maybe it hasn't been publicly announced. Sometimes that plan might fall through or it was never true and a Costco doesn't go in there. But it's not just about the Costco. Sometimes you can walk into a new build development and the builder might pitch you on the school. They might even show you the site on the map and have it marked as middle school. This happened actually recently in Crystal Valley Ranch down in Castle Rock. There was a site dedicated to be a school. But what happened next is not exactly what everybody thought. DCDS came in and said that site is actually not going to be a school. We don't think it's a desirable lot, or we don't need it, and it's not going to be that. It's actually most likely to go back to the builder and become more homes. So people who are banking on having this middle school walking distance don't have that now. Instead, they just have more neighbors. This can be true for retail, development, and even schools. Your individual lot is also in the middle of being developed. You're still waiting on landscaping to mature. So the whole street is probably not really going to have any kind of mature trees. They're all in their beginning stages. And builders are not really developing a lot of beautiful, meticulous landscaping. It's usually some grass and a little sapling that still needs to be grown in order to protect you from the rest of your neighbors. So this can really add to the community feel of maybe lacking some charm, which you're also going to lack that historic charm, which if you're looking at new builds, that probably just doesn't bother you. But these are all just things you need to consider. And I can tell you my biggest con when I'm out showing new builds is that I get really friendly with my tire guys. You are in an active construction zone for a while. So think tires getting blown out by nails and debris everywhere. Get your HVAC clean because it gets dusty.
Okay, it's a brand new home. Why would you need an inspection, you ask? Well, it's super important. So I had a client once who insisted, I don't need an inspection, it's brand new. They're gonna the county person is gonna go through and inspect it, it's fine. And I said, hey, this is a client that I really cared about, known her for a long time. And I said, I understand that. I'm gonna pay for your inspection because this is really important. So we did the inspection and we found plenty of problems. We found some structural issues in the subfloor and some HVAC things. So let me tell you, inspections are absolutely necessary, especially with new builds. And we're going to talk about when. You actually probably want to do 3 different inspections with a new build. First, you want to do a pre-drywall inspection. This is before the drywall goes up because drywall hides a lot of problems. And once the drywall is up, there's only so much your inspector can actually check out. Next, you want to do the final inspection before closing. And this is just the inspector is going to go through and put tape on everything that's wrong. They're going to make sure all the touch-ups are there. The inspector is going to spend like 4 hours at your house making sure it's all good. Whereas your final walkthrough is probably only 15 to 30 minutes. And finally, you want to do your pre-1-year warranty home inspection. So you've bought the home, and then 1 year in, your warranty is going to expire for workmanship and things like that. You want to do one more inspection with your inspector, probably at like the 9 to 10 month mark, to make sure anything is there, you have documented, and you can get them to repair with the warranty. And with your inspections, one way to tell the quality of a new builder in terms of service and quality of the build itself is what kind of barriers do they put between you and a home inspection. A lot of companies throw up walls like crazy because they just do not want to work with your inspector. I won't name any names here again, but we are later on going to rank the top 10 builders, and you'll notice some at the bottom maybe are a little more difficult to work with your inspector. But that's a question up front that I always like to ask is, how hard is it for me to get a home inspection on this house?
When you do decide that these cons are just not enough to keep you away, because the new build is gorgeous and the community is great and there's so much to love, that's fantastic. Keep your real estate agent involved in every step of the transaction. Every email, every communication you get, forward it to your agent. Do not assume that the builder is communicating anything to your agent. Jake and I have a story. We had a buyer who was under contract with a new build. The appraisal came in low. They delivered those results to our buyers and not us. For 3 full days, our buyers stressed. What are we gonna do? The appraisal's low. If we wanna close, we're gonna have to come up with the cash to close. Jake and I knew for sure there was no reason for them to come in with that cash. We could negotiate the builders to just lower their price. The market conditions all indicated this was a very doable thing. But after 3 days of sweating this, freaking out that they might lose the home, they didn't want to deal with it. They decided to meet them halfway and cover half of that appraisal gap when they never should have had to. Ultimately, that was their decision because they just didn't want to risk it. They didn't want to go through the stress, but I guarantee if we had been in the know of this 3 days earlier, we could have walked with them, reduced any of that stress, and the entire appraisal gap would have very likely come down, all at the cost of the builder.
Talk about those warranties, because these are actually a pretty cool thing that you get from a new build that you don't get from a resale home. But there are some limitations. Typically, you get a 1-year workmanship warranty, 2 years on systems like HVAC, and 10 years on your structural foundation. There's definitely limitations though. They're not going to cover things like cracked concrete. So there's 2 kinds of concrete. There's new concrete and there's cracked concrete. So just expect that some of the concrete you're going to have will crack, especially in Colorado with expansive soils. The foundational warranty is typically related to fairly devastating issues. So if you have a small crack in your foundation, they're not going to come fill it for you. So what we try to do is coach our folks to mitigate this problem long term. So the issue with new builds is, back in the 70s when they built homes, they would dig out the foundation of the home, they would pour the concrete perimeter foundation, and concrete takes 52 days to fully cure or harden. Okay, that's back when everything wasn't in a rush, and they would let the concrete cure for 52 days, so you had a fully stable foundation wall. Then they pack the dirt back in, they compact the dirt, and that dirt then pushes water away from the foundation when it rains or snows. With a new build, there's no time for that, so they don't allow the foundation wall to fully cure. So they gingerly toss the dirt back on top and they don't pack it down. They try to give it a little bit of a tilt away from the house so the water's running away, but over time that soil is going to compact and eventually be flat or even negative toward the house. So something you have to watch for your first 10 years or so is to take care of your landscaping, and you might be adding more dirt to keep that foundation safe.
But let's be real, how many homes are you gonna buy where you get something as nice as a warranty for everything? On a resale, if something goes out 6 months after you purchase, and chances are it very well might, that's the luck of the draw, there's no recourse. That's just your problem now. So that's a great benefit of a new build, is a lot of these systems are gonna be protected under your warranty, or a lot of them are brand new. So even on a resale where you might buy a home warranty that will cover some of these things, that's only for 1 year. And I promise you, when you buy the home warranty protection program for 1 year, your furnace goes out at 1 year and 1 day. And in a new build community, everybody is buying right about the same time. So you're not the new kid on the block, you're all the new kids on the block together. And you're probably buying into a specific community feel at the same time because you're likely in similar walks of life, have similar interests, work in similar places, or have similar priorities. So a lot of times this can be seen as a built-in instant community that you might not find anywhere else.
What was that, like 20 seconds of positive? Megan, knock that off. Back to the tough stuff. Okay, but we do really need to talk about the builder contract. This is a different contract than the boilerplate real estate commission approved contract we use to buy resales. The builder contract is written basically explicitly to protect the builder from you. Like Megan mentioned earlier, they have the rights to unilaterally cancel the contract if you upset them. In general, we review all these contracts with our folks, but our line is, hey, you're signing away all your rights when you sign this. Just so you know, there's probably not a lot of wiggle room for getting your earnest money back if things come down to it. They're not obligated to fix any of the inspection requests we make on inspection. So this could be a scary contract. Hopefully not, probably not. We're there to help you mitigate. And a lot of times, even if they are contractually able to do something, we can sweet talk some folks into taking care of our clients. The builder can also do things like legally change the lot you've chosen for your house without your permission. Now, they don't usually do this in practice because they do have a reputation to uphold, and that would be a pretty bad one, but contractually they can do it. They can also, a lot of times, they tell you, okay, this is going to be a May finish date. That's commonly not true, and it's probably June or even July on a regular basis, but they legally have rights to extend their close up to 2 years without letting you have the contract. And so your earnest money is locked up while the rest of the market is maybe appreciating and maybe the rates are getting different. So you have to be careful. There's so many things we could go over about this contract, and we're always happy to once you get there. Okay, Megan, rapid fire Q&A, most frequently asked questions about new builds. You ready?
I'm ready.
Should I hire my own agent to buy a new build?
Listen, I think this question is really well answered in the video. I don't know why you wouldn't. You're not going to get some kind of discount for not working with an agent. You're just going to be unrepresented, left without a teammate and a partner in the whole thing. So I'm not sure why you wouldn't. If you decide you want to, make sure you bring that agent on your very first visit. A lot of places, if you do not bring an agent the very first time, will tell you that you are not really able to have that representation. So.
Okay, Megan, what is the typical deposit for a new build?
It changes a little bit from builder to builder, house to house, but you're looking at generally about 1 to 5% plus the cost of the upgrades, which typically is quite a bit elevated from what we see in the resale market and a lot harder to get back. Colorado is a very, very buyer-friendly market. We have a lot of laws to protect buyers and get them their earnest money back. In the resale world, there are about 100 reasons under the sun you can get your earnest money back without question. Not so true in the new build world. Jake, what questions should you be prepared to ask the sales representative at a new build?
Oh my gosh, so many questions. So when can I do an inspection? How many inspections can I do? How hard do you make it for my inspector to get access to your home? How long does my lender rate lock? When does that expire? What are the long-term plans for the community? How much of the association dues? What's the mill revulate of your tax rate? I could go on, but we did say this was rapid fire.
Hey, that's why we bring you.
All right, everybody, that's a wrap on what we've been calling the dark side of new builds. Thanks so much for joining us. Like we said, there's a great way to get what you want out of a new build. It can be an awesome situation. We guide people through this process all the time, and we'd be so happy to help you. So whether you're moving in 9 days or 900 days, give us a little email, give us a text message, and we'd love to do a private consultation and help you figure out what your next move.
All of our information is in the description below, and we make tons of videos like this. So if you like this video, subscribe so you can be the very first to get it all.
Thanks so much. See you next time.